Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to share with you a review of the new Colourpop Sol Imar eyeshadow palettes. I'm also going to be sharing how I got this look today using both of the palettes and swatching all the shades so you guys know my thoughts about them. So you guys want to know more about the new Colourpop palettes, then just keep on watching. So the Colourpop Sol Imar palettes just released as part of the summer collection. These are each $12. They have 9 shades and also a mirror inside, and then they're also plastic packaging. Compared to some of the original eyeshadow palettes from Colourpop, this is the Element of Surprise. This is a size comparison, so it's just like a little bit smaller and the height is the same. I was kind of nervous when I first ordered them that they were going to be really tiny, kind of like the Huda Beauty mini palettes, but these are definitely bigger. They're a decent size, and then the only thing I don't like about the packaging is they went back to having the names on the back. They changed it for the Perception palette, maybe another palette too, but they just changed it for the Perception palette. I was hoping they were going to keep it the same, but I definitely like that each palette has a mirror inside. This is the Sol palette, which is a lot of warm tones, more bronzy and peachy shades, kind of more of like a neutrally summer palette. And then here is the Mar palette that has all of those blue shades, some copper shades, and just some neutral shades in there too. So you do get a lot of variety with both palettes, especially this one. So I'm gonna zoom you guys in and share swatches of both palettes and let you guys know some of my favorite shades in both of the palettes. So I'm gonna start off with the Sol palette. I'm just reading the back of the box that has all of the names of the shadows, just starting off with the top row. The first shade is a peachy matte shade. This is called New Dig. It's like a very light shade. Next, I actually really like this shade. It's called Anthem. It's such a pretty kind of rose gold shade. It has like a coppery hint to it too. Really, really love that shade. It's probably my favorite in the palette. Next, we have the shade Dynamite, which is like this orangey brown matte shade. The next shade is a copper shimmer shade, Hotel. All the shimmers in both of these palettes swatch really nicely. Well, this one's not as pigmented, this next one, but this one has a little bit of a different formula. This is the shade called Motel. So that's more of like a satin finish and not a shimmer. You can see kind of the difference. It's a really pretty shade too, like a hot pink kind of coral shade. And then this shade is in the inner corner of my eye today. This is called B&B. So that is more of a light shimmer shade. And then this shade is called Floaties. This is more of like a hot orange kind of color, kind of like Cheetos. Every time I see shades like this, there's shades like this in the Yes Please palette, and that's what it reminds me of. Then we have the shade Dot Dot Dot, I think is what it's called, and this is more of like a matte, bright orange shade. I really love how many like bolder orange and pinkish tones are in here. And then Unwind is the last shade, which is kind of more of a cool tone, dark brown shade. So those are all 9 shades in the Sol palette. You get a couple different textures, mostly shimmers, and then we have the shade, I think it was Motel, that is kind of like in between a satin and a shimmer shade. It's a little bit of a different texture. And really, like, the shimmers in both of these are awesome. Sometimes I do have some Colourpop palettes where the shimmers are just a little bit more like thick and chunky and with more fallout and don't like really stick onto your eye, very foiled. But these shimmers go on really, really nicely. It's the mattes that are a little bit more powdery. I usually find with Colourpop mattes, they're not as creamy as I would want them to be. They are, like, you do need to build them up a little bit more than some other shadows, but the shimmers are definitely great. So next up is the Mar palette, which is my favorite of both palettes and what's mostly on my eyes today. I really, really love this palette. So I'm going to start from the top, and the first shade is called El Rey, and this is a shimmer that is kind of like a golden peach shade. Really pretty color. Then we have this copper shade that I really, really like. This is a gorgeous kind of bronze shade. This is called Wild One. So pretty, so pigmented. Then the next shade is called Detour, which is a matte dark blue shade. It's like a very pigmented color. I have it all in my inner or outer corner today. Really easy to work with, really easy to build up. Next we have the shade Boozy, which is kind of like an orangey gold shade. All these colors are awesome. The next shade is Gridlock, which is like the best shade Like, I love shades like this, like teal colors like this. I absolutely love it. This is the reason I bought the palette, basically. And it swatches, gorgeous. It goes on the eye, gorgeous. And then the matte brown in this palette, I actually really, really like. It's kind of like, it can pull neutral, it could pull more cool or warm depending on what other transition shades you have. And this color is called Sorbet, and I just really, really like it. It goes with every shade in this palette. Next we have this shimmery teal shade called Highway. Really pretty shade. It's more of a light shade, but you can still definitely build it up. I have it a little bit in my lower lash line. You could probably barely tell, but it's a really pretty shade. Then we have a cool tone, dark brown. This is a shade called Top Down. Definitely a more cool tone, and it kind of goes really pretty, like those like mint chocolate chip kind of colors. Really love that color combination. Then lastly, we have a copper shade called My Way. This one's super gorgeous too. It's kind of like a coppery bronze, a little bit deeper. Really just love this palette. Those are all the shades. And just seeing all the colors together makes me really, really happy because I feel like this palette is so cohesive. Like all the mattes and the shimmers can go together in different ways and different color combinations. They all just like really make sense together. So I was just even more happy just swatching it because I've just been using it on my eyes. But those are all of the swatches of both palettes. I'm gonna go ahead into the tutorial so you guys can see how I used both palettes on my eyes today to get this look. So starting off with the Soul palette, I'm going in with the shade New Digs as like a really light transition shade. It's just like a matte peachy shade. I'm gonna carry that a little bit higher since it is such a light shade. And I really like that there is a mirror in both of these palettes because you don't get that in a lot of Colourpop palettes. I think just like the Perception palette, maybe one other palette, but it is a little bit annoying that they didn't put the names right directly on the palette. Then using the Mart palette, I'm using the shade Sorbet, the matte brown shade in here. It's kind of more of a neutrally brown, which goes really nicely with the blue shades. So once I have that shade right in my crease, it basically blends in with that first shade. There's a little bit more peachy. I'm just applying it more directly in my crease and building it up more on the outer edge. So I'm gonna use the shade Detour from Mar, and I'm just gonna use like a flat brush. I'm taking an E17 from Morphe, which is clearly very, very old, and I'm just gonna pack it on the outside outer edge of my eye. And to start off, I don't want to carry this shade too high in my crease. I'm kind of carrying it a little bit high, so we'll see what it looks like once I add the blue to my lid, because I don't want to do like full on blue. I mostly want to just keep the color on my lid. And then I'm going to use one more shade in the Soul palette. This is the shade B&B, kind of this lighter champagne color. And I normally do this at the end of my eye looks because this is just a color that I'm going to do mostly in the inner third of my eye, but I'll just apply it down first. Then I'm going back in with the Mar palette. I'm using kind of like the staple shade in this palette, which is Gridlock. This is a gorgeous shade, and it applies so pretty on the eyes, like goes on really, really pigmented. I think I'm just gonna cover up the blue that I put down. I just wanted to add a little bit of dimension. And some of the shimmers in both palettes definitely have a little bit of fallout, but it's like so subtle. Like I have my foundation, contour, and everything on, and that's the way I've been doing my makeup lately. I never really do my eyes first anymore, but the fallout is definitely not a big deal to me. It's like really, really minimal. So I'm gonna go in with a big pencil brush. This is called the Smoky Shadow Brush from Smashbox. I'm going back into the shade Detour, the matte blue shade, and then I'm just gonna pack it on the outside. I wanted something a bit smaller. Ooh, I have blue like all over me. I think make sure that doesn't stay. Like the matte blue, the fallout is a little bit less forgiving than the shimmers. It's generally the case with like darker matte colors, but I wanted to use a more precise, smaller brush. This one's still like not that small, but just to make sure that I didn't get too carried away. So I gotta clean it up a little bit, but I really like how the blue outer corner adds like a lot more dimension than just like the green. So I really like how they included a couple different blue and green shades in there. So I just added in a little bit of the shade Sorbet to my lower lash line, and then I'm gonna mix in both of the blue matte shades too. All right, so this is pretty much the completed look. Every time I do colorful looks, it always looks crazy until I put on lashes. So I'm gonna apply some mascara and lashes and then just finish up with this review. So this is the final look with both of the palettes. I did go over the outside of my eyes with concealer just to like clean it up and make it look like really precise. And I really like both of the palettes. I've been using them for a week now. I'm a little bit behind on this review because I've been traveling, but it's given me some time to use the palettes every day and use them on their own too. Especially Sol, I've been using a little bit more for like everyday, more neutral looks when I've been shooting like different looks for Instagram and stuff like that. This you can use as an everyday palette for sure. And the Mar palette you could actually use for everyday neutral looks too because it has all those bronzy tones and like brown transition shades. You could definitely use it for everyday as well, but I find for more of like summery, light, not as intense like copper tones, really do like the shades in the Sol palette for like really quick 5-minute eye looks, especially this center shade right here. Love that for a lid color. So really both of them have their advantages. Not really much negatives for either of them. Like the mattes in general, not like the most pigmented mattes in the world, but I kind of find that with most Colourpop palettes. And honestly, these are $12 palettes, so like for the price point, they are awesome. And if they were double the price, like $24, $25, I would still be really happy with them and that I purchased them and happy with the formula. I recently reviewed the Flamingo palette from Violet Voss. The mattes in there like were really hard to work with, like really not pigmented. The Colourpop mattes are a lot better than that, and that's like a $45 palette, just to give you guys a comparison. So really overall, happy with both palettes. If you like the shades of one or the other, I recommend both. If you like both, get both. I wanted Mar, but I felt like I needed both of them, so I just got both of them. And I'm wondering if you guys want to see a video of like my Colourpop eyeshadow collection, because at this point I think I have like maybe 8 or 9 palettes. I've reviewed a bunch of them on my channel already, but I could definitely do like an overall review and give you guys like comparisons of all of them and just like a quick overlook of my Colourpop eyeshadow collection. I could do that like really soon, so let me know if you guys want to see that. But that is everything for today's video. Definitely let me know if you guys purchased these palettes in the comments down below. Also check out my description box. I do have a really big summer giveaway going on right now, so check that out in my description box. And yeah, that's everything for today's video. If you guys liked it, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And I'll talk to you guys soon in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.